A new chapter is unfolding in New York City's political landscape, and it's one that could send shockwaves far beyond its borders, especially for India and its diaspora. Sohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old politician of Indian origin, is set to become the governor of New York City, one of the most influential and dynamic cities in the world, often referred to as the financial and business capital of the globe. New York is a Democratic stronghold, and Mamdani has secured a decisive victory in the primary elections with an overwhelming 95% chance of assuming the governorship. However, his rise to power has raised significant concerns, particularly due to two controversial statements he made in recent years. First, he labeled Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a war criminal. Second, he made scathing remarks about Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling him a mass murderer. These comments resurfaced recently in public and media discussions, drawing sharp criticism. I distinctly remember his statements from a few years ago when Modi was given a grand reception at Madison Square Garden in New York, where the Indian diaspora gathered in large numbers. At that time, Mamdani, representing the Democratic Party, launched a vicious verbal attack not only on Modi, but also on the Indian community present there. His tone was deeply offensive, mocking both American and Indian sentiments. The audacity of those remarks still lingers, especially for those who witnessed the pride of the Indian diaspora that day. Mamdani's background is worth noting. His father was a Gujarati who migrated to Uganda, while his mother, Meera Nair, not to be confused with the filmmaker, is also of Indian origin. Despite his roots, Mamdani has shown open hostility toward India and its leadership. His remarks during Modi's visit were particularly shocking because the Gujarati community forms a significant portion of the Indian diaspora in New York. Many of them run small businesses, from convenience stores to fast food outlets, and they had turned up in huge numbers to celebrate Modi's visit. Mamdani, however, ridiculed them, warning that America would eventually turn against them for supporting a killer. Those words weren't just an attack on a leader. They were a direct affront to a community that has contributed immensely to New York's economic and cultural fabric. Now, as he prepares to take office, the biggest fear is not just for the Jewish community, whom he has also antagonized, but for the Indian diaspora, especially Gujaratis. New York City thrives on its workforce, a large percentage of whom commute from New Jersey, many of them Indians. The question is, how will Mamdani's administration impact them? His rhetoric suggests a governance style that could marginalize communities based on their political or cultural affiliations, creating a chilling effect for those who don't align with his views. The Indian diaspora, already navigating the complexities of identity in a foreign land, could face new challenges under his leadership. One critical point to understand is that in American politics, the Jewish community holds significant influence, especially within the Democratic Party, where many donors and leaders are Jewish. Mamdani, despite his anti-Israel rhetoric, was forced to delete some of his harshest tweets against Israel and the Jewish community within days of making them, a clear sign of political pressure. But he has shown no such restraint when it comes to India. This double standard reveals his calculated bias. He fears backlash from the Jewish lobby, but feels no such accountability toward the Indian community. This selective targeting raises serious questions about his ability to govern a diverse city like New York fairly and inclusively. Another alarming factor is New York's political landscape. A majority of Indian Americans in the city vote Democrat, even though some shifted toward Trump in the last election. If Mamdani becomes governor, he could provide a global platform for anti-India narratives, particularly on contentious issues like Kashmir. Given New York's media dominance, any propaganda launched from there would have worldwide repercussions. Pakistan and even certain Indian opposition leaders like Rahul Gandhi could exploit this platform to attack India's image on an international stage. The ripple effects of such narratives could undermine India's growing global influence, especially at a time when the country is positioning itself as a leader in technology, economy, and diplomacy. Worse, universities in New York could become hubs for anti-India and anti-Modi campaigns, with Mamdani potentially endorsing such movements. This would damage India's global reputation significantly. There's also the risk of Mamdani emboldening Islamist rhetoric, given his hardline stance, which could alienate the Christian Indian community in New York. The potential for division within the Indian diaspora is real, as his rhetoric could pit communities against each other, fracturing the unity that has long been a strength for Indian Americans in the city. Financially, New York is a powerhouse, home to Wall Street, global corporations, and the iconic city that never sleeps. But if Mamdani's divisive politics take center stage, the city's dynamics could shift. Donald Trump has already branded him a leftist lunatic and a religious bigot, signaling a fierce political battle ahead. This kind of polarization could destabilize the city's economic and social fabric, affecting everyone from small business owners to corporate giants. For the Indian diaspora, particularly Gujaratis who run many of New York's small businesses, the stakes are especially high. The bottom line is this: Mamdani's ascent to power would be a major setback for India. New York's influence means that any anti-India campaign launched from there would gain global traction. Whether it's Kashmir, Modi's policies, or Hinduphobia, Mamdani could legitimize and amplify these attacks on the world stage. The Indian diaspora, especially Gujaratis, should be wary. This man has shown he holds no affection for his roots. His governance may well mark the beginning of a sustained global assault on India's image, and the repercussions could be severe. The Indian community must brace for a challenging period ahead, as their contributions to New York's vibrancy could be overshadowed by a governor who seems intent on alienating them. In the end, while New York may eventually shift away from democratic control, the damage Mamdani could inflict in the meantime is undeniable. India must prepare for the challenges ahead, as this governor-elect has already made it clear where his loyalties and hostilities lie. The global stage is watching, and India's diplomatic efforts will need to counter any potential fallout from Mamdani's rhetoric. This isn't just a New York issue, it's a global one with implications for India's image and influence. To fully grasp the stakes, let's consider the broader context. New York City is not just a financial hub, it's a media capital, home to outlets like the New York Times, CNN, and countless others that shape global narratives. If Mamdani uses his platform to push anti-India sentiment, it could amplify existing biases in international media, which often portray India through a lens of stereotypes or selective reporting. For example, issues like Kashmir are already contentious in global discourse, and a figure like Mamdani could provide fuel for critics from Pakistan to Western think tanks who seek to undermine India's sovereignty. The Indian diaspora's role in New York adds another layer of concern. With over 700,000 Indian Americans in the New York metropolitan area, their economic contributions are immense, from tech professionals to small business owners. Yet, Mamdani's remarks during Modi's visit suggest a disconnect from this community's pride and aspirations. His governance could lead to policies that inadvertently or deliberately target Indian businesses, such as increased regulations or taxes, under the guise of progressive reforms. This could erode the economic stability of a community that has worked tirelessly to build a life in America. Another critical angle is the domestic political fallout in India. Mamdani's rise could embolden opposition parties to leverage his anti-Modi rhetoric for their own gain, further polarizing India's political landscape. This external validation of anti-India narratives could complicate the government's efforts to project a unified image abroad. Moreover, the Christian Indian community in New York, which includes significant populations from states like Kerala, may feel particularly vulnerable if Mamdani's rhetoric leans toward Islamist sympathies, as it could disrupt the delicate balance of communal harmony within the diaspora. To ensure this speech reaches the 12-minute mark, let's reflect on what India can do to counter this challenge. First, the Indian government must strengthen its public diplomacy in the US, particularly in New York, by engaging with media and community leaders to present a balanced narrative. Initiatives like cultural festivals, trade summits, and academic exchanges can showcase India's contributions and counter negative stereotypes. Second, the Indian diaspora must organize, using platforms like community organizations and business associations to advocate for their interests and hold Mamdani accountable. Finally, India's foreign ministry should monitor New York's political developments closely, ready to respond to any anti-India campaigns with diplomatic precision. As we look ahead, the rise of Sohran Mamdani is a wake-up call. India and its diaspora must be proactive in defending their interests both in New York and globally. In my next video, we'll explore how India can strengthen its global image in the face of such challenges. For now, let's recognize the urgency of this moment and the need for unity and vigilance to protect India's reputation on the world stage.